I'm making this video for two groups of people. One, if you're an aspiring product manager, you've heard all the fun and cool things about product management, that you lead the teams in brainstorming sessions, you talk to customers, you figure out their problems, and then you come up with creative solutions to solve the problem, and boom, the business makes money, revenue grows, everyone is happy. I'm here to tell you that it doesn't work that way.
Are you playing?
And there are some unfortunate realities and very uncool aspects of product management that you just need to be aware of to level set your expectations as you pursue the product management career. The second group of people that I'm making this for is for people that are already in the product management space, that are beginning to experience these not so glamorous realities on a day-to-day and starting to think about, would I have made different choices had I known this before getting into product management? Or is there anything I can do about my realities? I'm here to tell you, I see you, I hear you, I relate, I understand. Let's come together and share in the joy of these realities. Feel free to add to the comment section if there's anything else that you want to talk about what is not so cool about product management. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to discourage people from breaking into the product management space. I absolutely love it. I enjoy it. I think it is a great career path. So I'm not saying don't do this, but it's to help you realize that not all that glitters is gold, that everything great also comes with some things that are not so enjoyable about it. And that's okay. That's fine. Everybody can relate to some of these things. It's not all rainbows and sunshine, but then it's a great career. We just need to know what we're going into. So let's get into it. Number one, you'll be shocked, but people may not recognize your full impact on work most of the time. You might have heard that product managers are supposed to focus on outcomes and not outputs, because shipping features is not necessarily what we are here for. We are to deliver value to the users and deliver value to the business. The problem is, in many cases, outcomes are quite difficult to measure and intangible. So outcomes will sound something like what the growth looks like, what the revenue growth looks like, what the user behavior has changed to, or what your conversions are looking like. Those outcomes are in many times not very obvious and tangible to everybody within the organization. I'm not necessarily checking the financials every day, or they have access to it. The conversion numbers are probably just numbers in a chart that, 50% today, 20% yesterday is just a number. It's not tangible. It's just a number that anyone who cares and understands those numbers is the one that kind of gets what those outcomes mean. But features are flashy. You can't deny it. You're going to see the pop. You're going to see the clicks. You're going to see the colors. And that is flashy. Whereas a product manager who is expected to focus on outcomes and not features or outputs, that's probably not where the bulk of your own direct input goes into. So shipping features will always be valued more than research and hypothesis validation and all those legwork that you get to do every day. Adding new ideas and all the fancy creative ideas that the team collectively adds is probably more fancy than prioritizing those ideas. People like to see all the interesting thoughts in our heads and the things that the teams come up with based on all the research that you've done. They like to see that versus, okay, this is how I've prioritized these ideas based on what is going to deliver more value and the complexity and what we're trying to achieve. The ideas are just going to be more fancy. People are going to anticipate that. Problem solving is probably going to be more values than something like problem prevention or trying to anticipate the needs of customers before. People are probably going to see a problem solved versus a problem mitigated. And short-term execution is always going to look more interesting because a lot of people have very short attention span than long-term goals. If you have long-term planning as part of what you do, planning for the next 6 months, for the next 9 months, that's all nice and dandy. But like, what are we going to shift tomorrow is probably going to be more valuable. So there's a high likelihood that people will not recognize the full impact of what you do. Because of this reason, shorter attention span, flashy stuff, and tangible stuff is what people would like to see, unless people really care about those aspects of the work. Unfortunately, that's not most people in an organization, and you have to live with that reality. Okay. Reality number 2 is you may find yourself at the center of politics a lot. And that's because of the nature of product management. It sits at the intersection of almost functions within an organization. You get pulled into sort of workplace politics because you have some work you have to do with sales, and you get to work with marketing, and you get to work with customer success, and you get to work with the executives. So you might find that the tussle between, let's say, sales and marketing, you're probably in the middle of it and you're trying to navigate your way through. You might say you don't enjoy politics, but somehow it finds you because of the nature of your role, because it's a cross-functional role that is not done in isolation. You get to work with these people who may be on different ends, and you're supposed to bring everyone together in many cases. So it's almost inevitable that you find yourself at the center of politics, at the center of people not wanting to take ownership for things, especially because the nature of product management requires that you have a basic understanding of all the functional areas. You understand a bit of marketing, a bit of sales, a bit of design, a bit of customer interaction. And in some organizations, you find that because of that intersection, people may just have an issue with that. So you find yourself at the center of politics a lot. And the trickiest situation also happens to be where there is now disagreement, in terms of the direction with the senior management. You may find yourself disagreeing with the executive as well in terms of the direction. Unless you have very strong evidence and very creative way to communicate your opinions and you still maintain those relationships, it might get quite political and in some cases quite tricky, you start to hurt feelings and you start to step on toes because of how you express your strong indication towards something. At times, it becomes a power struggle about who's doing what is best for the organization and who is bearing the risks. That you have to be very careful. And if you say you don't enjoy politics, you have to be political about setting the tone and communicating your opinions with evidence and things like that. So it can get quite political just because of the nature of where your role sits as a multifunctional role, or a role that understands a lot of functional aspects, and also with respect to decision making and responsibility and who handles what risks. So take notes. Another very uncool thing is you might find yourself chasing a lot of unnecessary mundane things, like navigating organization processes a lot more than you initially anticipated. Often all of that would take precedence over strategic decisions. You will notice a significant portion of your time is spent on groundwork, on meetings and chasing dependencies, and just things that is quite mundane, sometimes overshadowing the intellectual and creative aspects like conceptualization and brainstorming and all those nice things that you think is about product management that is very creative about it. You probably find yourself in so many meetings that you'd be like, you people could have had this conversation without me. Why am I here? You understand the direction we're going, you understand, but you just needed an in-between, or you needed a product manager to sit in on the call and make sure that there was a product voice that was hearing everything, and then any disagreement was brought to light. You find yourself having a lot of all these logistics, operations, connecting people, making sure people are talking kind of situation, making sure things are shared with the right people. You find yourself in a lot of that so many times that when you compare the amount of time you spend being creative with ideas and problem solving, actual work, and all these mundane things, you're like, yeah, it's a lot. It can be a lot. And you need to be prepared for that reality as well. What to do about it? There are ways to manage some of these things, honestly. There are concerns that need you. Not every aspect of the product management role is going to be very creative and very intellectual. Some things you just need to understand. Back to the initial point, this is a political situation and I need to be here. Not necessarily because this requires any product thinking or product skills, but because this just needs someone in my profile to either solve a situation or to neutralize the situation. And I just need to be here. Or I need to manage this relationship properly, or I need to do this operation because nobody's going to get it done, and I need this done before I can actually do interesting, creative, or intellectual work. And that's just the reality. Striking a balance between managing dependencies and the creative process is just about maximizing efficiency and innovation within an organization. Another interesting reality is you actually don't call the shots as often as you think. So ideally, despite having envisioned the autonomy and the independence and the decision-making prowess that you have as a product manager, you would encounter situations or scenarios more often than you think, where your decision-making latitude is highly influenced by cross-functional team dynamics and stakeholder consideration. And in my opinion, that's even like, those are the things that should follow your decision-making process. You may want to go one way and you realize that, but like, the stakeholder consideration says something differently. The team dynamics makes me have to think about those decisions again, right? So you don't necessarily call the shots as often as you think. Your shots are dependent on a lot of things that are outside of your control, and those things are significant and should be taken into action when you're making decisions. So in theory, product managers should get to make decisions for the product areas that they manage. Just the way marketing gets to make decisions about campaigns, and engineers decide on the technical infrastructure and technical areas of the product. Senior management makes product decisions about leadership. So PMs should also be able to coordinate with the product area on the level within which they manage, which is right? But in many cases, you would probably find out that some decisions that you think you should be making have already been made in the organization. It's been made by the senior leadership that this is what we're doing, this is the direction. In fact, you get to find a lot of product managers being handed down features, not getting creative about how do we discover the problems or how do we figure out what users want, just handed down features. And that's because sometimes you have executives or leadership teams that can only work on so much with respect to the product strategy and product vision. They can only work on so far. If they're working within the scope of, let's say, 3 to 6 months, you don't get a lot of wiggle room with how you creatively solve the problem. The product vision probably already contains the features that we're working on or the solutions that we're trying to bring to the market. And all you as a product manager needs to do is execute. And that's the sad reality in some cases. So you don't get to call the shots and make decisions and have so much creativity around how do we solve this problem? No. So all those things have been defined, especially in certain stages of the product. You're not going to new markets. You're not solving like entirely different problem themes than what is being. You're just working within the scope of what has been defined. And sometimes those things are very narrow, clear cut, no shots called here, clearly defined. That's something to also be aware of, that if you get into those situations, it's probably not anything that you're doing wrong. It might just be a time and a season that the product or the business is in, and that's just what it is. Lastly, you actually may not apply maybe about 75% of the knowledge you have or the things that you know. And let me explain. There's so much information out there. There's so much knowledge on the internet. There's so many podcasts, so many books, just so many things that when you read, you're like, whoa, this would be cool to apply within my organization. And then you probably never get those opportunities. Your product is not at a stage where some of those things should be applied, and you can't force it. Much of this theoretical knowledge you absorb from all these frameworks and methodologies, they might actually seem very good on paper, but they are irrelevant in the context of the product that you're managing, unless you want to force it. Be sure that if you can prove your value within the needs of the organization, then that's good enough. But you might just have a lot of value that you don't get to apply. You cannot force knowledge that you have into an organization that does not have a need for it or does not see a need for it now, and that's okay. In many cases, when people take on new roles, they see it as an opportunity to get very creative in the application of all the knowledge that they've had and they've never gotten to apply, which might be good for a start, but as you get into the organization and you can learn more about an organization, you just realize that, I'm just doing too much at this point, and we probably need to scale down a lot of the things that you do. You probably apply about maybe 25 to 30% of the things you know more frequently. The others, maybe once in a while when the situation calls for it, if the situation calls for it. And lastly, you actually may not get to work on what you want for a long period of time, and you may not know what areas you want to work on for a long period of time as well. The various phases of product management that initially resonated with you may not eventually be the ones that you find yourself working on long term. Product management offers a wide range of areas to explore, for one. And also within your product, you also have another layer of diversity in the areas that you could potentially explore. So for example, You may have strength with activation and onboarding or retention or growth, those kinds of things, or expansion. That may be an area that you have an interest in within the product management or growth phase at least. But then to now be working within a product that has so many areas of features like analytics, like APIs, the technical aspect, infrastructure, the possibilities are endless. And you may begin to pick some interest at first. You may be lucky that you start to work in the areas that interest you. But as you progress within an organization, there's a likelihood that the organization may not have need for investments in that area at some point in time. And you may have to move to some other areas that are less rewarding for you. And you find yourself probably working on those areas long. You make it work because that's what we do, right? But you probably just find that I don't get to work on the areas that tickle my fancy for long because the business may not have need for it. Now, if it's that important to you, you may decide to change jobs and just continue to focus on those areas. But obviously, your options will be limited to organizations that have need for that area. That's just one thing. Your aspirations to focus on those specific features or areas of product management that you're passionate about, they could just be busted by the need to allocate time across different spectrums of the products that is important to the business. So the dynamic nature of product management also leads to figuring out, I enjoy this, but realities of the world and business means I get to work on this, not what I enjoy. In the same vein, the things that resonated with you initially will actually change because as organizations move you around based on the needs that they have and the things that they want to focus on, you may also actually develop interest in other areas which you also find rewarding. And sometimes that could potentially lead to some confusion about what exactly makes me tick as a product manager, what exactly is my shtick. And sometimes it could lead to confusion about not even knowing what you want to explore because there's a lot of things that you probably enjoy or a lot of things that you don't even enjoy and you get to do. That dichotomy requires you to consistently self-assess and say, am I really enjoying this area of product management or am I doing it because that's what has been given to me to handle? How do I feel about it right now? Is this something that I get to do but I don't mind doing or something else I would rather spend my time doing? That is a long-term tussle that I think every product manager faces, especially if you get to move around a lot. It's a journey where you have to keep figuring out and deciding part-time on what works for you. So don't get confused when you feel confused about what you like. Don't get confused when you get to move around a lot to experience different aspects of product management or different aspects of your products. Just make timely decisions or point-in-time decisions about, does this work for me now? And am I still on a journey to self-discovery around what is my specialization or what I'll rather spend my time doing long-term? So, yeah, that's something to think about. If you've journeyed with me to this point and you're still very firm in your direction and decision to pursue product management, that is what I hope and that's what I expect, and that is great. However, if you are still having doubts about your direction and what you're doing, I would, of course, strongly recommend that you speak to a career coach and review your options. Again, the point of this is not necessarily to discourage you because these are just the realities of product management. And I bet every role or career also has such realities. It's not to discourage you from starting or continuing. It's just to establish this baseline and make you realize that you're not alone and understand what you need to do to manage these realities as you pursue your product management career. So if this video was helpful to you and how you consider your journey, please share it with your product manager friends and I'll catch you another video.